have a awesome segment for you. We got Miss Shauna Jones. OMG. Y'all must understand. I feel like I'm among celebrity tonight, and I tell you why. This sister has been doing her thing. You know when they say people go viral? Well, I happened to catch this young lady during the time she went viral, and I'm telling you why she went viral. She was just doing her thing, doing her creative beauty, and people loved it. But I don't want to really ruin her parade. I want to share some of her beautiful work. But I want to just start by introducing you all to Shauna Jones. And Shauna, welcome to Soul Thursdays.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome. You know how we do here at Thursdays. We like to kind of just chat with people and really get to know them, right? So if you don't mind just sharing us a little bit about you, we call it the origin story. Your mom and them, where you grew up, your people. Tell us about where you grew up, where you were born, some of the places you lived.
That question is so loaded that these days because people always ask me, where are you from? And I'm wondering, are they asking because of my accent or my facial features? But just to take you back, I'm originally from Toronto, Canada. My parents are both from the Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago. So shout out to my Caribbean massive. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, went to school in Tallahassee, Florida, on the highest of seven hills at Florida A&M University. I'm very, very proud rattler, where I pledged Delta Sigma Theta. And I moved to the DC area after college, where I have been pretty much for the past 20 years. But I'm also a nomad, so you can find me many different places at any given time.
Awesome, awesome. Shout out to Beta Alpha Made. Shout out to the Soroids. Now tell me this, have you always been, digital creator? Tell us about your journey and how you got started in the work of being digital
I have,
creation.
yes, I've always been a visual storyteller and I've always been a photojournalist. So even back, I can remember on my days on campus, I was a photojournalist for the campus newspaper, the FAMU. And I was one of the first people who had a digital camera. So my side hustle back then, I think I used to charge people 25 cents to take their picture and, per print or something like that. I would print it out at the local Eckerd drugstore. And that was just like my hustle. I would take their pictures and burn it on a CD. So I'm dating myself, but that was my side hustle. So I just love, taking pictures. And then even after college, I would always, be out on the scene and taking, photos for the weekend and doing visual albums and send them out. I would say I was one of those people that was always taking selfies, but this was before the selfie was a thing. So I was turning the camera around and I would call it Big Face Productions back then. So just for as long as I can remember, I've been telling stories through pictures. Um, Whatever I post, I typically have an image attached with it. And this is just whether it was a stock image or something, I never, like plain text. Fast forward on or around Thanksgiving weekend, I saw some really dope images, and I always give this young man his flowers by a gentleman named Sean Harrison, and it was the prequel to Black Panther, and it was Bashenga. And I was like, "What is this piece? Is so amazing. What is all of this stuff?" Read all the way through the bottom of his post. What got me is he said that Burna Boy was going to be starring in the Disney adaptation. And Burna Boy is my favorite, one of my favorite artists right now, if not the favorite. And I was like, Burna Boy, Disney, what is this? Let me read. But if you read to the bottom, he was like, this is all AI generated. None of this really occurred. I actually made it up. I'm like, what? So over the weekend, there were some other, viral collections that dropped by some other individuals. And I was like, what is really happening there? And it really stayed up and taught myself through YouTube University and was like, I don't like, I don't like sci-fi. I can appreciate his work, but what can I do that is more reflective of who I am? And then, I just started creating pieces that was my own style. And that's kind of the beginning of the AI journey for me.
Awesome. I love that story. What a beautiful origin story. I like the way you made it your own, right? You had your
Yes.
inspiration, but your work focuses on changing the way Black people, particularly Black women, see themselves. Can you elaborate on that and what that means for you?
Yes, I mean, I think that a lot of times all of my stuff is colorful. We're bold, we're vibrant, we're colorful. We show up in so many different ways in so many different places. And I try to portray that in my artwork, whether it's being different complexions. There's still work to do with the AI and the different sizes, but even the different sizes of the different ages. And one of the things that I always have us do, I always make sure that we're fly. We're fly. Today I'm gonna put out I did a Home Depot collection inspired by the young lady who had the Home Depot apron on that went viral. And even with that, we're fly. Whether we show up in the Home Depot stores looking our very best, and people are surprised. And so I don't think we should be surprised when we see Black women show up beautifully, whether their hair is done well, whether their makeup is popping, we should no longer be surprised. And so for my work, it is pretty much a standard that we're going to look good no matter what we're doing.
Awesome. And I will agree that whenever I see your work, and I'm going to share it in the chat, is that it's always just this beautiful, this excellence, this regal experience. And it's just like you want to be there, right? And you get this FOMO, and you're like, I wish I was there. How did I miss it, right? So kudos to you for following that. Tell me this, considering your background, how
Yes.
does your multicultural background, your roots, influence and how you shape your artistic style?
Well, as I told you, both of my parents are, Caribbean, and those are cultures that are vibrant in and of themselves. A couple years ago, I did some ancestry testing. It's not so few; it's probably about 6 or 7 at this point. But I did some ancestry testing, and a large percentage of my DNA was Nigerian. And then I started travel to Nigeria. And I married a Nigerian man and fell in love with the culture. But even prior to that, I will always have a side hustle where I was selling African fabrics or selling jewelry. So I think my work is a fusion of those things. Like in every album, you'll either see me or a derivative of me, with some African print on. Like it's just gonna pop up in the album. Somebody's gonna have Ankara on or some kente cloth, the bold colors. I think that's my style. Even when I'm, teaching people or doing instruction, I always try to people to have their own style. So what's important to you? So for me, there have been debates and arguments about Pan-Africanism and whether it's hurting African American culture. And people will have these debates on my images, and then I have to speak up and say it is I love and reflect the diaspora. I am, even if I have been raised in America, I have a son that was born and raised here. My parents are immigrants. My family is Caribbean. I'm married into an African family. And so I am proud of those experiences and how they shaped me. And I put all of that in my work.
Awesome. I love it. I love it again. I love when people kind of go through life and, they just begin to create the journey. And I like how along the way you pick up these beautiful pieces and you begin to shape that. One thing about AI is that, it's not that the graphic part, there's also the chat part and the text. I mean, AI is so huge right now. Do you mind giving us a backdrop of the AI industry and some of the technologies out there? Do you have any favorites? Give us some hints and tips, for the audience and what they should expect with the AI industry.
Well, I always say I don't. I learned of a website the other day, and let me see if I can pull it up really quickly. But there's websites that are happening. There's so many AI tools coming on the market. I mean, about 25 per day just dropping with chat and text and AI video, talking head AI presentation tools. So I try not to promote any one tool because I do want people to um, I don't have it. I'll definitely share it with you and be able to drop it in the comments because I don't remember it off the top of my head. I just
Okay.
learned of it. But I try not to promote any one tool. I had to find my way in the tools that work best for me. And in some collections, I might use 2 or 3 tools. I might use, say, a Mid Journey to create an image. I might use Adobe Generative Fill to change an image. I might use Dolly for in painting. And so these are some of the big players on the market. But what I know is that all the big tech players are coming into the game, whether it's Meta. And so it's a race to the top. Everyone's trying to do their best to come out with a new tool. And just as quickly as I have this conversation with you and recommend a tool, there'll be a press release tomorrow about, Bard is, beta is released to the general public or whatever the case may be. So I try my best not to promote tools, but I do, every single day I think, as I'm preparing, as I try to learn more about these technologies, I try to read the headlines. You cannot turn on the TV these days, CNN, without hearing something about AI. Even this morning, I was watching the news and they were saying that Paul McCartney is going to drop a brand new Beatles album, the last Beatles album with AI.
Wow.
And so I was like, this is the Beatles, that their catalog, they're going to use it to extend it and extend as long as they can with an AI generated album, you know? And so there are so many advancements happening. Even if you talk about music, there was a Drake, uh, a Drake AI tune that went viral a couple weeks ago. And he didn't like it because it wasn't really his voice. But what I think that these tools have done is done a remarkable, albeit scary, of putting these things in the hand of the people. Whereas some of the artwork that I'm doing, it would have taken graphic designers, or you would have needed a whole production. You need a graphic designer, you need a graphic designer, you need a Photoshop expert, you need a cameraman, set director, and I think it's just putting some of these abilities in the hand of the everyday person.
Awesome. You know, I heard about that whole Drake song so much I looked it up and it sounded like him, but it didn't sound like him. But I like the Paul McCarthy example because I think it was
Mm-hmm.
Timberland was like, yeah, he wants to legitimize, what is it, AI music for people who've passed on and people been like not happy with that. But then I like the Paul McCarthy one, right? Because Paul McCarthy, he's living, he's also an original member. It kind of makes sense. So it could be. Do you think people should be
And I
afraid?
think in
Go
his
ahead.
case, it's showing that the older generations can adapt as well. I mean, a lot of times new technologies come online. I remember my mother, may she rest in peace, and she'd be like, "Oh, you and all this texting and thing." Oh, she just, I don't need all of that. Just go on and go on. But really, it's showing that older people can adapt.
I love it. I love it. Now tell me this. Do you think people should be afraid of AI? Have you seen any bad things with it? Do you feel like,
Absolutely.
I call it humans, the tool can be as innocent as a brick, and then you can use a brick to build a house, or you can use the brick to break a window, right? It depends on how you use it. So you think people should be concerned at some extent?
I think you should be concerned, but I think that's just with any new tool, right? I saw something on one of these news shows I was watching about an elder lady, getting scammed. Well, you can really get scammed by a real live person that you deal with every day, but you also can get scammed by an AI generated voice. So, in both scenarios, you need to, when someone calls you and asking for $10,000, you need to really do your due diligence to see, is this someone you know? Um, you know, who is this that I'm sending $10,000 to? I think you really need to understand that because they're bad actors in everything that we do. So those
I
are some
think
of the concerns, some of the privacy issues. Even when I travel, sometimes I travel to other countries and I'm very mindful before I can use websites in other countries. They have a privacy notice that flashes across my screen and asks me if I want to accept. In America, they really don't have that. I've come
oh,
through TSA and global entry. The fact that this AI stuff is now in the general public hand, the government has been using this. I come through the global entry line and I don't even touch a button, push a piece of paper, and they're like, Shauna, you're good. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. They're like, don't worry, your picture's been taken 20 times before you even got to us. So the facial recognition and the capabilities are there and have been there, have been tested, have been in beta, have been experimented on. But this is what we're hearing and we're seeing with the big AI boom is that it's now in the hands of everyday people. So just like with anything else, you just have to be careful. They're going to be bad actors. And if you turn on the news, you'll see that some of the big CEOs and of these big tech companies are doing or advocating for regulation. There has to be punishments in place for people who use AI in bad ways, for people that are doing deep fakes, and it's not just a joke or parody; it's actually for evil. So I think those regulations will come, just as some of the other things that they're still working through, some of the copyright issues and all of those things. I think it will continue to develop.
awesome, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And that's actually a really, really good example. And the lesson I've taken away is don't send $10,000 to people who call you.
No, no.
Tell, tell me this in
That
this
whether it's
rapid.
AI, you need to do the same checks and balances with everything, you let out the door.
Exactly. Some of that old-fashioned common sense, I'll call it. Tell me
Yes.
this, in today's like rapidly evolving technology landscape, how do you stay, current? Because, based on your field and your background, I don't think you necessarily have a technology background, but I love your artist background in photography. How do you keep up with all of this?
Well, we've spoken before, and I've told you my background. One, have a BA, MBA. But we had that 5-year MBA program back at FAMU, so that's my educational background. But then I also have some additional degrees. One being a degree in technology management from Georgetown. And so I did have a deep desire to switch over technology, but I wasn't able to make the jump back then. I was actually worried about starting over my career and just not wanting to lose all of the years that I had in banking and financial services. But now with this AI and how early and how I think well I've been able to pick it up, I'm like, I have to make the jump. I'm gonna have to make the jump. I'm gonna have to take some steps back. I'm gonna have to take a step over. But this is the time where that I can get in and on technology, whether it be cloud computing or AI ML, and get in and really learn some things that I'm passionate about. So this thing is evolving daily. And what I do to stay abreast is read the headlines. I read the headlines. Um, all of the news. I'm in groups. I teach others to try to, sharpen my skills. It's not a day go by that I don't generate at least one image. So I'm always, oh, I see this. Can I remix it? Or what would I do? It might not make it to the public, but every day I'm practicing and learning, and sitting in, office hours with some of these Adobe's having them. A lot of these companies are doing free trainings for different things because they want to be the leader in the space. So they're doing sessions and tutorials and videos, even YouTube. There are people on YouTube that download every week all the latest tools. And I mean, they're just as free as your YouTube subscription, right?
Wow, that
So
is
that's how I'm
pretty.
staying on top.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. And you said so much. What I pick up is that like your background is, having that background in technology and business. It's like that was the foundation. And then what I hear is that what we call that curiosity, right? That
Hmm.
curiosity to learn more, to pick up another tool. But what you said about the career transition potential, that's awesome, right? Because who would imagine that, you're just sitting there living your life. You're like, you know what? I think I'm going to change careers and I'm going to use this thing to shift my career. You may not have been, ready to hop back then, but it seems like you are ready now. And I
I'm
love
hot. I'm
also,
ready to hop right now
you said
because
it is
you
now.
get to the point. I was in something earlier where they asked you what is the definition of success, and I'm telling you, I grew up in a Caribbean household with people that believe get your job, hold it 30 years, and then retire. And so I saw my dad, and I get emotional when I talk about him. I saw my father work for General Motors on the assembly line 30 years. He delayed everything he wanted to do. I'll do this when I retire. I'll do this when I retire. I'll do this when I retire. And he retired and got pancreatic cancer and died in 18 months. And so I don't live by that. I live by now. I'm not going to wait to do things that are fulfilling to me. And so I might have to abandon all of the things that were safe to me. And that's really scary at this moment because I have a son with special needs who just finished his first year at Morehouse. And he requires a lot of things, medical attention, just if he's using up all my money. But he requires a lot of things. So it hasn't given me the luxury to be free and pursue other professional endeavors. But I think this is just the time that I have to just take the risk.
Awesome. Awesome. As we wrap up, just a couple more questions for you. What's next for you looking ahead? I know you said something about teaching classes. Are you available for like individual coaching? Do you do workshops? Tell us about those things and some of the things you aspire when it comes to teaching and sharing your gift moving forward.
Yeah. So, right now, as I said, I'm just trying to stay on the top of the game, creating new art, staying on top of the tools. But for others that might be interested, yes, I do one-on-ones. I also do work. Some people like to commission art. So those are things that I do, special projects for people, commission art. And then, depending on how I land in this transition, one of the things that I'm also interested is working to um, educate young children, whether it be through STEM programs, because I realize that we always say, those that aren't on the train are going to get left behind, but this thing is a jet, and it's moving at rapid speed. And I think about our children, our beautiful children in these lower income homes, inner city environments, marginalized communities, people of color in general. And I think that the emphasis, if they don't learn these tools, they would actually be left behind. These kids are learning how to write with Chat GTP, good or bad. It's the way that technology is going. And so the people that need to at least be familiar with these tools, I want to be able to help and empower them as well. So certainly education, continuing education.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the education. I love sharing gifts. And definitely make sure you share with me your contact information so that I can share with the audience how they can essentially commission you for a custom piece of art, get one-on-one training, or I love the concept of you working with STEM organizations to teach the next generation about this rapidly moving technology. Well, Shauna, this has been an awesome session of just getting to know you. Any last words of anything we didn't cover that you would like to share with the audience?
Be bold, be bright, be beautiful.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much. And I look forward to chatting with you again. We have to do a part two. Something tells me the
Okay,
audience is going to
absolutely,
want more.
absolutely. I want to be live and be able to do some Q&A, so we'll definitely work and reschedule that.
Awesome, awesome.